Okay, so add to mention Monica and Vivi.
Present. Sorry, I'm late.
Hello, so we are all here now, and so I've been asking, I've been consulting IC for like suggestions, and one thing he suggested is that I should leave the what would you do problems as homework, and ask you to like besides writing the answer, also provide a reasoning, and then I grade individually to see like what is your thinking process and what is the problem with that, and but that takes a lot more time, so I'm like wondering what are your opinion regarding that.
I like it. I mean, I do think it kind of sucks a little bit that it does take up a little bit more time. I'm not sure how you could simplify it, but I think at the very least, I think it does help, like, if we're like forced to actually like write down the reasonings for why we should do certain discards, so we actually make sure that we know what we're talking about. I mean, I started doing that thing with like the old Google Forms, just going back and writing down my explanations for stuff, like to make sure that I actually really know what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
And I think it helped a lot.
Okay. Okay then. So I guess for this session,
reason for it was the main reason, right, Jerry? Did you explain? You should explain the reason why, though.
The reason for what? For doing this?
Well, the reason for, yeah, well, maybe providing the alternative, because the main reason is if you've been limited time to do X, for example, so you have 20 questions to do and do multiple choice, because it's kind of multiple choice. You have a choice of 14 answers.
Yeah.
Obviously, only like usually a couple of those answers are valid, and then you just pick one of them. If Jerry then sees that you've picked one of them, and let's say you picked it correctly, he won't actually know why you picked it. So you might have picked it correctly, but with the wrong reasoning. You might have picked it incorrectly with the right reasoning, but slightly wrong outcome. So it's pointless to just say, this is my answer. The main reason why I pointed out to Jerry was like, if someone says 7S is the answer, but why? You don't know, and the answer could be correct, and you just skim over the decision tree that they given you, or could have given you.
Yeah. So, and the other thing, and the other thing I suggested is I should basically omit all the data table and give you only the conclusion. And so I feel like this would make it less persuasive, but then IC also pointed out that, you know, I guess because I am a scientist, I like treating data feels like very natural to me, but it's not the same for everyone. So yeah, in that case, I would need like everyone to believe that the strategy that I provided is the right thing to do. And yeah, I don't know, like, is that like acceptable or appropriate for everyone?
Wait,
that is more than acceptable, because you've obviously got a very high standing in the Mahjong community, and I think because you are like a scientist, we probably understand that there is data, and we do want data. We probably could ask for it, but yeah, I'm more than willing to just like trust your judgments and your EVs, even if I don't even need to know the data behind it, to be honest.
Okay.
No,
I
yeah,
basically-
I'm the same.
Huh?
Yeah. Jerry had the thing where he's like, you guys won't trust him unless you provide the reason why it's true. And I'm like, no, it's basically a trust me bro system. You're the coach. They're going to trust you.
Mm.
Yeah, like,
And if they want
You could-
data, they can ask for it.
yeah, you could tell us that always discard the South every single time, and I'd believe you.
I might like some explanation about.
I won't do it. I won't actually do it, but like, I'll trust
they
you. I'll
need some more
trust you.
training.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's just jump into today's session. Then I'll change the Google form a little bit and then send it to everyone. So this is the beginning of chapter 2 and 3, which is when we are not playing single player mahjong anymore and we are facing someone else's head start Riichi, in which case we'll be considering the balance between offense and defense. So and these are the things I will be talking about. First is the understanding of what is the dealing rate and what is the cost of folding. Folding also has a cost, and also some relative conclusions like the dealing rate of honor tile and the safety of Sotogawa and one chance. So this is the outline. So basically what we're saying here is you saw something like this on the table. Your Kamicha is Riichi on 4S, and which means that Kamicha is 100% Tenpai. And a lot of beginners' mistake is trying to guess or trying to figure out what is the weight of a Riichi, and it's basically impossible. No matter how good you are, it is impossible to read the weight of a Riichi, and you should avoid doing that. The reason is that even if you know what they probably need, they could have drawn it as their last draw and wait on something else. So this is the mysterious part of Riichi. You can never tell what is the weight of a Riichi, basically. But this is not the case for open hand. For open hand, reading the weight is a lot more feasible. Sometimes you can easily pinpoint what is their weight. It's because the chi and the pawn tile is their last draw. So you exactly know what is their last draw, and then what is left is their weight. And this will be covered in chapter 3. And although this is a black box, there's one significant information is that this person needs to be Tenpai. Tenpai means that this person needs to have a legal weight. And this is the most important information here. So what I'm saying here is, although this is a Riichi is a black box, it's a black box with an evident property that this hand is now Tenpai and having a legal weight. And based on this evident property, there are a lot of analysis we can do. And so we're going to do this analysis for today, and this will be the basics of defending, and this will be the basics of the following sessions where like we're considering whether we're pushing or folding depending on various factors. So a good thing. So there are two things you should be thinking about when regarding your next discard. There are two dimensions. One is what is the probability of your next Hao dealing in, and the next thing is how much value will it be if it deals in. And we have statistics regarding these two factors, and why the reason why we are doing this analysis is because there's a data that you can look it up in the Amikuromo, like the database for Mahjong. So it's called net win efficiency. It's basically win rate multiplied by average win score, subtracting dealing rates multiplied by average dealing score. This is very straightforward. This is basically on average how much are you winning, subtracting how much are you losing. And this is the stats that differs the most across all ranks. And you can see from this table, this data is from the database, and those yellow numbers are in gold for gold room, and the green number for jade room. And you can see the problem with expert 3 player is that when you're in gold room, you have a net win efficiency of 600. But once you enter jade room, the jade room says if you are an average expert 3 player, you should go back to expert 2. So this is the stat you can keep track of in the database, and it most directly reflects your progress. And so what we've been covering in chapter 1 is basically how to maximize win rates multiplied by average win score. And here we're going to be talking about how to minimize the dealing rate multiplied by average dealing score. So when you're about to cut a tile that has a dealing potential, you should be thinking about a balance. On the one side, there's the risk, and the other side is the reward. Ideally, they should at least match to justify this discard. And so when you're ordering Tenpai, which is the case covered in this statistical Mahjong strategy book, on the risk side, you're basically risking the dealing rate multiplied by the dealing score, and the dealing rate varies from let's say 1% to 15%. And on the reward side, as long as this tile passes, which is 1 subtracting this dealing rate, you immediately have a win rate, which is very high. It's actually a lot higher. Typically, it's a lot higher than dealing rate of 1 tile multiplied by win score. And this is the reason why pushing in a lot of cases is advantageous. Is because even if you have the worst weight, like a middle 4, 5, 6 kanchon, as long as your current tile passes, it immediately has a 20% win rate. This is what the data is telling us. The 20% win rate is not the win rate of the next tile, it's the win rate of all the following rounds. So the thing about the natural win rate is larger than dealing rate of 1 tile is the most important thing in considering push for judgments when Tenpai. And this decision depends on dealership. So dealership is we haven't talked about dealership in chapter 1, because the EV of dealership, like a dealer hand, is basically that EV multiplied by 1.5. But here, the dealership directly influence the score, the dealing score into your win score. If the opponent is dealer, then the dealing score will be higher. If you are the dealer, then the win score is higher. So this affects this decision. Also, the Tenpai strength affects this win rate. So if you have a kanchon, this win rate will be like 20% or 30%. If you have a ramen, this win rate will be like 45%, which will be a big factor. And also the safety. Safety is if you know some strategy that can reduce the dealing rate, then this also gives you an advantage. And also the value is the direct multiplier at the bottom. And so that's it for Tenpai. For when you're Ishanten, it is a lot more complicated. You actually need an entire different book for this. This book is called Mahjong Iron Push Condition. This entire book is only talking about Ishanten push judgments. And the thing we're considering now is we have 2 tiles to push. So now we have 2 different things on the balance, on the risk side, and on the reward side. Even if the first tile successfully pass, we still need to first draw into Tenpai, and then we can finally have our win rate. But this chance to draw into Tenpai depends on the strength of your Ishanten. And even if you draw into Tenpai, your win rate will depend on your final weight. So let's say if you have a floater Ishanten, which is a very good Ishanten, but then floater Ishanten has a very high chance of getting a kanchon. So the final weight is sometimes a lot weaker. So you will see that it is much more easier to push a complete Ishanten than to push a floater Ishanten. But when you're head start, sometimes you're going for floater Ishanten instead of complete Ishanten. So that is the big difference. And the judgment is a lot more narrower. So we'll talk about it at the end of chapter 2. The decision depends on dealership. Now there's Ishanten strength, the immediate acceptance of this Ishanten, and also the chance of good shape weight. Sometimes your acceptance is very wide, but then your chance of good shape weight is rather low, and also safety and value of your 2 discards that you're potentially pushing. And when you're 2 Shanten or higher, it's just not going to work. This reward side of the balance has too many multipliers, so it's a really, really small number. It's almost negligible, but then you have 3 risks that you're going to take when you're pushing 3 tiles, when you're 2 Shanten or higher, when you try to get Tenpai. So it's just not going to work. In general, you should fold everything when you're 2 Shanten. And one thing to remember is that folding also comes at a cost. Folding is not like risk-free. Unlike poker, when you fold, if you pay the big blind, it's already there. If you didn't play the big blind, you just quit this hand. The risk comes from 3 factors. One is that opponent could sumo, and sumo means loss for you. Second thing is if the game went to Rukoku, you have to pay no temp payment. Folding often means that you won't be able to get temp anymore. Third thing is if you run out of save tile and you still dealt in, that also is a loss, is a cost. So the target of the net difference of this balance is not 0, but a negative number, depending on the turn number, dealership, and the number of save tiles available to you. And this negative number is going to be like what exactly is this negative number? Will be discussed next session actually. So this is the data for folding against 1 Riichi. There are a lot of 3 cases. One is opponent sumo. The other is lateral movement, which means someone else dealing to this Riichi. And the third thing is Rukoku. And as we can see, as the game goes to late rounds, the chance of Rukoku dramatically increases and the sumo chance dramatically decreases. This means that towards mid-game, our calculation is mostly based on win rate and value of our hand and opponent's hand. But towards the end game, the calculation is mostly based on no temp payment. It's the very simple calculation of if you are Tenpai, then you get 1500 because you and the Riichi person are Tenpai. If you fold, then you have to pay 1000 because Riichi person is the only person Tenpai. So the net difference is 2500, and this 2500 is going to be compared with average Riichi dealing multiplied by your dealing rate. And so you will see that AI very aggressively pushes a lot of tiles at Hote, Haite, and last draw, because once that tile passes, you immediately get this no temp payment. And so that is part of the reason why we I hope that everyone can have at least a vague idea of how to calculate the dealing rates. Then this helps you make those no temp payment push or fold judgment. So yeah, and so now we'll be digging into the 2 dimensions. One is value, the other is the dealing rate. So the value side is more straightforward. We'll be just looking at the data, and the important data here is the Riichi no Ipatsu value. It's typically around 5200, and for Ipatsu it's going to be Mangan 8000. And also there are other open hands that can also be considered as a Riichi. And among it, there's Honitsu and there's Toitoi. You can see that Toitoi actually has a higher value than Honitsu or Riichi. So this means that you should also be treating Toitoi and Honitsu as a big threat. And if there are signs that indicates that, let's say, if Honitsu overflows or Toitoi person has called 2 or 3 times, you should seriously treat that person as a Riichi and start to defend. And also, so this is the value for non-dealer, and this is the value for dealer. You can see that dealer Riichi Patsu turn has typically 11,000, close to a dealer Mangan, and Riichi Noi Patsu is close to like 77, which is dealer 340 full. So takeaway is basically you should be cautious of Riichi Konetsu, Toi Toi, and open door 3. For like a normal open like Tanyao or Yakuhai, the value is usually not that big, but when there's strong indicator that this person is holding a big hand, then you should also start to be very cautious about it. So before we dig into like the probability side, is there any questions? Okay, if there's not, then so this is there's one concept of that is very important to defense theory, which is called Suji. But in order to explain Suji, we need to first explain Furten. Furten is the more fundamental rule of Riichi Mahjong. So there are 3 kinds of Furten, and Furten is a status that you cannot declare wrong. The first kind of Furten is discard Furten, which says a player has previously discarded a tile that the hand could not now win with. And because of this, any tile that a player has discarded is 100% safe against that player, because even if that player is winning on that tile, they cannot wrong. And so we call those tiles that a player discarded Genbutsu, and Genbutsu is always 100% safe. The second kind is temporary Furten. Basically because calling a win is optional. Even if you're winning, you can skip that win. So for a non-Riichi player, and note that this non-Riichi can't be a close hand. As long as you don't Riichi, and you can choose to skip on a tile, but in that same turn you cannot win another tile again until they draw their next discard. For this turn is one turn before that player draws their next discard, they will enter temporary Furten. And there are some extended conclusions based on this temporary Furten rule. First one is any tile just discarded by Kamicha is 100% safe to everyone. This is because this tile is discard Furten to Kamicha, and it is temporary Furten to Shimocha and Toimen. Even if they're winning on the tile because of temporary Furten, they cannot wrong. Which means that if you closely follow that tile discarded by Kamicha, it will be 100% safe. But it won't work anymore if you go to the next turn. So there's one trick when you are folding, is you will try to immediately follow what Kamicha is cutting, instead of cutting other safe tiles like honor tiles and then go back to it, because next turn they might be able to win it. And second extension is that for any open hand, you should keep track of when the player cut a tile from their hand, and this is when the player can change their weight. So and all the safety of all tiles needs to be refreshed. It would be ideal if you can keep track of every Tadashi and Tsumogiri, because players can dama, like even if you have a close hand, you can still be tenpai. But this isn't easy, and it's too high a requirement for beginners when when most of their concentration is like the efficiency of their own hand. So I won't be requiring this, but doing this for open hands is a minimal requirement. Once a player opened their hand, you should immediately start to track what is the Tadashi and Tsumogiri. And once you finish chapter 3, you will once you master the skills of reading an open hand's weight, you'll be more interested in tracking that, because that gives you a lot of information of what the hand is, what the weight is of the open hand. And so this is an this is an example I've shown to most of you. Here Shimocha twinman's dealer and pawn the Yakuhai Dora 3, so I'm folding, and here Shimocha cut the north, and twinman cut the green from hand, which in the log it's shown as a bright tile, where Tsumagiri is shown as a dark tile. This means that twinman has changed their weight, and so even if this north just passed and we have seen 3 north, this north still deals into hell weight north tanki. And from the reading side, there's another thing, which is this Haku is also a hell weight tanki. So it's perfectly reasonable to switch from a hell weight tanki to another hell weight tanki. And you can see that I cut the 1p here is a Genbutsu, but Maka cuts the north and dealt in. So I mean, I already said that I don't like Maka and don't use Maka for like serious judgment. And yeah, so this is the reason why you need to keep track of whether the player has cut from hand or cut the tile that they just drew. Because if this is a tile that they just cut the tile they just drew, then this means that this north will be safe, typically. And the third thing is a tournament specialized thing where a player may intentionally skip a win in order to wrong a specific person. Even if the weight didn't change, any tile not strictly protected by Fullerton is not safe, and you will see this a lot more in the tournament. I don't know whether you will see in an upcoming IC's tournament, but this is a lot. This is a very important skill that you will need to be very cautious, especially in south round. That sometimes you need to be you can only cut tile that are strictly protected by Fullerton. And I actually have a very good example of it. This is not a tournament game. This is just a ranked game. But you can see that in Jade level there are already players that try to do this. So this is a very important decision where right now you're South 4 and you're 14,600 lead ahead from the second place player. And because winning this hand immediately ends the game, so of course we will Dama. But in tournament, I think Riichi is also fine. So I've been Damaing this from turn 6 and all the way here. And Kamicha cheat the 6s and cut the 9s here. And so I would give everyone like a minute to think about what will be their discard from this point. And after that I will explain my own thoughts and my own choice.
$7p? Just because like you don't really necessarily like you still like kind of have that 6p acceptance, or I'm just still looking at that 4-5 round then.
Oh, I mean you're already tempai. Yeah, you're tempai.
Wait, never mind.
Yeah, Dama pinful on 3-6p.
Wait.
Yeah.
I just continue dominating then. If that's right, that's like one of the options, right?
Yeah. So you would cut the 7p here, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've shown this to Ferry Sweet. So I guess I will ask for a decision from Vivi and assistant Mo. Yeah, Vivi.
It does. Oh God. I don't really like. I like. Is there any point to really call? Oh no, I'm sorry. I feel very dumb at the moment. Well, it's South rounds. You just need to keep on dummering. So you just get rid of the 7p to
cut the 7p.
Yeah, South 4. Yep, your first cut the 7p. That's what I do, but I just feel like that's just the option that increases your win rate the most.
Okay, I see. So Assistant Mo said, yeah, I would drop 7p2. There might be something to do with them. Okay. So I will now share with you my thoughts at the moment. So Kamicha Chi this 6-0, and it's very weird because the Dora is 9p, which means that the only chance that this hand is big is you need to have a Yaku that can effectively use this 9p, and Sanshoku is one of them. So because right now I'm 14,000 ahead, 14,600 points ahead, even if Kamicha Tsumo Mangan, this will only bring down the difference by 12,000. Kamicha needs a Haneman Tsumo, which is very difficult. So right now what I should be very cautious about is direct hit Mangan, because if I get direct hit Mangan, it's 16,000 difference. It's actually bigger than this 14,000. And the only chances that I can deal into a Mangan is Sanshoku Dora 3. And there's potentially also North Dora 3, because North is only once shown. So I'm very unwilling to cut anything that is within this 5, 6, 7 range. And of course the Dora. And so the other thing about like not cutting 1p, 1p can maintain Tenpai, but I don't really need the Tenpai here. I can safely fold because, you know, the chance of, as long as Kamicha don't Tsumo Haneman, I will be safe. And also 1p has a chance to deal into North Dora 3, because 1p isn't safe to Kamicha. So at the moment I cut the 5-1 and fold it. And so here's the after I folded, Toyman cut the 7p, and Kamicha cut the 8p, which is a Tsumokiri, which means that they haven't changed their weight. And what would you cut here? I guess I'll first ask Monica again.
So sorry, like the weight hasn't changed.
Yeah, because the tile is a Tsumogiri. Like they cut the tile that they just drew.
Yeah, just discard the 7p then. If the change hasn't weighed, if it's Sumogiri, might as well just draw the discard the 7p.
Okay.
Should be safe if it's.
Mm-hmm. What about Vivi?
Yeah, should be safe.
I don't think you can discard the 7p because they're gonna try and they're waiting on you specifically to discard the 7p, right? That's why, and it's the temporary Furitan is passed, right? So you gotta just like fold. I don't know what you fold on, but you just fold somewhere. I don't know. I don't know how the kitchen table, or I don't know how you picnic table fold correctly. But like you can get rid of like, I guess like the 5p or something like that. I don't know if you just want to really fully fold. I don't know.
Yeah, and okay, so Assistant Mo said they would choose 3 so because picking games. Okay, so what actually happened is that 7p at here, 7p deals into Sanshoku Dora 5 immediately, which is a Tanemon 12,000. If I cut this 7p, I deal it here. You know, Maka cut 7p again. So, you know, Maka sucks. And here you can see Kamicha skipped the 7p because 12k swing isn't enough for Kamicha to overtake. And Maka bites the bait again. Maka cuts 7p again. Of course, I wouldn't buy this bait. You know, so Maka sucks. Maka sucks. Don't use Maka for this kind of decision. And this is a perfect demonstration of, you know, once anything that is not strictly protected by Furitan will not be safe in this, especially in this tournament setting. You know, imagine this is a tournament. People will be crazy about trying to get first, and so I cut the 4-man Genbutsu here, and so yeah, this is, you know, sometimes, you know, like we've been talking about like we'll be talking about dealing rates analysis, like how you can know like tiles are safe, tiles are not safe. But that's just a relative comparison. Sometimes you just need to be like self-disciplined to strictly follow the rule, like to strictly cut Genbutsu and cut temporary Fullerton discards that are guaranteed to be safe in order to survive this kind of situation. And yeah, so I guess the point I'm trying to convey here is that like any kind of weight reading, any kind of defense theory doesn't overwrite the point situation based judgment, if that makes sense. And so the last kind of Fullerton is Riichi Fullerton, which is, you know, once this player declared Riichi, if you skip this wrong, then you can't win anymore. This Fullerton is permanent. And because of this, once a Riichi is declared, why did I say discarded? Once a Riichi is declared, every tile that is cut after this Riichi is safe to this Riichi. So this means that you should memorize what other player discarded under your Patsu turn. What I mean is you should remember the location of that discard. If that tile gets called, then you should do it for the next tile, because, you know, sometimes people call and this makes everyone's discard don't align, and sometimes if you go to late round, you forgot starting from which tile is the Genbutsu turn. So it's important to remember what is starting from which tile is the Genbutsu round. And yeah, every tile after those Ipatsu tiles is safe to this Riichi. And, you know, Fullerton is a status of the entire hand, not for a particular tile. This means that, you know, here, this is a very famous scene where Oi Takaharu declared this 5-sided Riichi, but because he already discarded the 6-mon, this Fullerton status works for the entire hand, which means that he cannot win from any of these 5 weights. And so he declared wrong for this 3-mon, but since 3-mon is one of the weights, this is a foul. And because of this Fullerton rule, Suji defense appears. The definition of Suji is 2 tiles that are distance 3. They belong to the same ramen weight. So take this discard as an example. The fact that 6p being the Genbutsu means that it rules out 4-5p waiting on 3-6p. Because if that is the weight, this player will be Fullerton. And since 3p only appears in this 3-6p Suji, 3p is safe from ramen weight. So Suji defense works only for ramen weight. Where we're saying, you know, if a tile is a Suji, then it's safe from ramen. But also, like, it can also deal into Tanki, Shampong, Kanchan, Penchon. And 3 is especially weak in Suji defense because there are 3 has 4 types of bad shapes, which is the most of all. Any other tiles only have 3 or 2 types of bad weight. Like 2p only have Kanchan. Only 3 has both Penchon and Kanchan. And 1 and 9 doesn't even have Penchon Kanchan. It only has Shampong Tanki. And, you know, same works for 9 because 6p also rules out 7, 8p waiting on 6, 9p ramen. Since 9p only appears in the 6-9 Suji, it's also safe from ramen. So 9p only deals into 9p Tanki and 9p Shampong, and of course Kokushi. And so I knew that Malaka has this misunderstanding of Suji, so I want to point this out again. The fact that 9-mon being Genbutsu only rules out 7-8-mon waiting on 6-9-mon. So it only rules out the 6-9 Suji. Suji only works for the closest distant 3 neighbor. It has nothing to do with 4-5-mon waiting on 3-6-mon. So 6-mon isn't safe from ramen weight, so because you can still deal into 4-5 waiting on 3-6. And so in order to make 6-mon safe, you need both 9-mon and 3-mon to be Genbutsu. Because 9-mon rules out 7-8, and 3-mon rules out 4-5. And this is called double Suji or full Suji or Nakasuji, which you'll also see later on in one of those tables. And as we've said, Suji defense only works for standard ramen, which by standard ramen we mean that there's a typical conclusion that Suji defense doesn't work very well for Honitsu, because Honitsu is where you have a lot of same suit tiles piled up, and there are many like semi multi-sided ways because of triplet. So for example, even if both 2 and 8 are Genbutsu, 5 still deals into like 4, 4, 4, 5 or 6, 6, 6, 5. So 5 there is effectively, it's actually a Tanki, but because of this triplet multi-sided effect, so their weight is a multi-sided. You just accidentally dealt into this Tanki of this multi-sided. So Suji defense works less effectively for Honitsu. And so there are two like imagination experiment we can do. Firstly is, imagine we're living in a world where only standard ramen weight is allowed. This would mean that Suji tile is 100% safe all the time. And also you can imagine living in a world where the ramen weight is banned. Nobody can weight on standard ramen. This time Suji defense will be completely useless, because the weights aren't ramen. The weight we've ruled out doesn't even exist. So the important thing is, how is our world? What is the proportion of ramen weight in our world? And for this, any kind of arguments out of vacuum doesn't really work. We have to look at real data. We have to look at like big data, big statistics to really support our argument. And the argument we're making here is that after we look at those data, the process of defending against a Riichi is pretty much a process of ruling out Sujis one by one, which means that ramen weight takes up the majority of Riichi. And by saying it's a process of ruling out Suji, we mean that because of there are the Genbutsu of this Riichi, some Sujis have been ruled out, and as turn goes on, more and more Genbutsu are created, and more Sujis gets ruled out. So what we're basically saying is there are 18 Sujis in total, 6 Suji in one suit, 3 suits, and as turns goes on, we're ruling out Sujis one by one. So the reason why we're saying is when we look at the data, so the red rectangle is the not ruled out Suji, and the green data is the ruled out Suji, and on this second column there's a number of Suji that has passed. You can see that beginning from turn 1 and ending from turn 19, the dealing rate of non-Suji basically became 5 times of their original value, and the Suji dealing rate only doubled throughout this 19 turns. And so the takeaway here is that the first one is very interesting conclusion that no info dealing rate 4-6 is actually more dangerous than 5. This is something that doesn't really make sense. Like if you come up with a theoretical model of Mahjong, this is only a fact that we are human players, and our data is basically a survival bias. What we observe is what are the human habits. It's not purely the rational thing. And so this is something about when you have 2 floater tiles and complete the 5 blocks, sometimes it's better to Sakigiri 4-6 than to Sakigiri 5, but this really isn't a big difference. And so the more important conclusion here is that the dealing rate of Suji, the green box, is contained. You can see that the increase as turn goes on the increase is very low. The most dangerous one is of course Suji 3-7 because the type of bad shapes. At the last turn, there's there's still a 10% dealing rate, even if it's a suji. But the non-suji dealing rate is uncontained. It tends to diverge towards the end of the game. We can see this divergence from here. So this dark red triangle line is the non-suji 2/8 dealing rate. You can see that it tends to increase faster and faster towards the as the turn number proceed. You can think of it as basically you can imagine a function of 1 divided by x. 1 divided by x looks like this, and so the speed that suji passes is pretty much it's pretty much consistent. Like 0.7 suji gets passed every turn. So we are
interject here.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerry, you're going too much into data again.
Okay.
Just FYI, maybe what you should do is after doing this section, ask a feedback of what people actually understood about what you just said, because I don't think Ray and Vivi and Assistant Moe really needs this right now. Maybe very sweet, because once you get to a certain level, you start needing to know the intricacies of like 2 different like dealing rates, and then board state matters more. But like right now, the summary of what you're saying is basically 3/7 sujis are not super viable to push. They're basically the same as just pushing a 1 and 9 randomly. Sujis themselves are very safe to discard, generally speaking, early on the turn when less sujis are tested. There are 18 sujis in total, and the more that are tested, the worse it becomes. That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
The numbers don't really mean much, I think. That's what I was telling you earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really like remake all the slides, so I like my plan is just to like stick to what I originally planned this session maybe, and next session I can start to make changes. Yeah.
But what you can do is you can skim over that instead of talking about them. You know what I mean?
Skim over? Okay. Yeah. Yep. Oh, okay. I'll try to do
sorry
that.
For interjecting.
So yeah. I guess, okay, I'll try to do a brief conclusion then. So here we're saying if it's a non-suji, then the dealing rate, the typical decision point is like turn 10 or turn 11, where a suji dealing rate is below like 5%, where this is really negligible on the balance. So we're saying if you're pushing a suji, then it's negligible danger, and you can always do that. But for a non-suji, you have to treat the dealing rate very seriously by considering how many sujis you're pushing. Let's say if you push a non-suji 456 here, you're testing 2 sujis at once. You're testing both 2/5 and 5/8. This makes the numerator 2, and divided by the number of suji that hasn't been ruled out. So you will see in a lot of AI analysis that you can push pretty much most of the 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9 non-suji because it's only testing 1 suji, but you can't push 4, 5, 6 non-suji because you're testing 2 sujis, and this doubling factor is destructive for the balance. So, yeah, so so that's pretty much all for this slide then. And now that we have an idea of number tile dealing rates, another thing we should discuss is the dealing rate of yakuhai. And so the gray line is the dealing rate of yakuhai, shonpai yakuhai. This diamond line is the dealing rate of 1 visible yakuhai. You can see that shonpai yakuhai dealing rate also diverges, and the speed is even a little bit faster than the suji, and then the non-suji. But once shown visible yakuhai is pretty safe. It's safer than suji until the last 3 or 4 turns. So the takeaway is, when there's a live yakuhai, you should think of live yakuhai as a non-suji. If you're willing to cut a non-suji tile, then cut the yakuhai as well. If you're not willing to cut a non-suji, then don't cut shonpai yakuhai as well. If you're trying to calculate the dealing rate, then you can add it to the suji count. So previously, total suji number of suji is 18. For if there's 1 shonpai yakuhai, then total number of suji is 19. Add it to the suji count for add any live yakuhai to the suji count. And in late game, 1 visible yakuhai is more dangerous than suji. But in mid turn or early turn, one visible Yakuza is very safe. So that's all for Suji. And another important concept is blockade defense, where this is another way to rule out roundman weight. So let's say if all 4 3P are visible to you, whether it's in it's a call by someone or it's in discard, or it's in your own hand. If all 4 3P are visible to you, then this rule out the weight being 2 3P or 3 4P, because 3P can't be in their hand. This makes 1 2P safe from roundman, because 1 can only be used by 2 3P weight, 2 3P roundman, and 2 can only be used by 3 4P weight. And the important thing is 2P is also safe from Kanchan. So this blockade is a little bit stronger than Suji. It also rules out some of the bad shapes. And so here's a summarizing table for blockade defense. For any tile that is not a 5, 5 is different. For any tile that is not a 5, we're ruling out the tiles that are outside of this blockade. So the 2 tiles that are adjacent to but outside of this tile is protected by this blockade. But for 5 makes 3 7 safe, because 5 is ruling out 4 5 and 5 6. Even if it rules out 4 5 4 6, it still leaves 7 8 open. So 5 only makes 3 and 7 safer. And adjacent it's called blockade defense. Is also, their main names are No Chance or Kabe or Wall as well. It's a little bit stronger than Suji because it denies Kanchan as well. And a direct extension of this blockade defense is called Sotogawa. So for this, which means the tile outside of Genbutsu before Riichi declaration. For this discard that we've seen before, since 6P was discarded before the Riichi declaration, the chance of this player holding a weight that contains 6P is low. And note that, a lot of people tend to explain this by, because they cut a 6P, their weight couldn't be 667, because why would they fix a roundman? But, fixing roundman is actually very common. The safety from Sotogawa doesn't really come from ruling out roundman. It mostly comes from ruling out bad shapes. Because if your weight is like, say, 6 AP Kanchan right now, this means that they have another pair somewhere, and when they have 6 AP and some other pair, they somehow randomly cut the 6P and fix this Kanchan. Which, as we've done so many what would you do exercises, you can see that this is very uncommon. For most cases, we'll be fixing roundman instead of Kanchan. But of course, 667 fixing is also less likely, because it requires a composite shape. It requires 2 6P in their hand and also a 7P around it, so it's less likely to happen. Especially for bad shape. So the safety for Sotogawa mostly come from ruling out bad shapes. And since it's less likely that their weight contains 6P, you can think of 6P as building an invisible blockade in their hand. Even if you don't see all of them, you can still imagine that they don't have another 6P in their hand, which means that it's a blockade to this particular hand. So then the blockade protected 7 AP are safer. Note that even if it's the last Tadashi before Riichi, it still guarantees basic safety. It's a power of Sotogawa because it needs 2 composite shapes. Of course, this table is about when the Tadashi this Tadashi discard is created. Let's say if this Tadashi is 6P is the 2nd turn, then it's a little bit safer than it's the 5th turn. But this difference is very small. As long as it's before Riichi, it guarantees basic safety. And also, the other thing is, even if I guess it's too much for this session, I guess. So, and when we observe the Sotogawa dealing rates progress, how the Sotogawa dealing rate progresses with the turn number, we can see that the Sotogawa dealing rate also diverges. The increasing rate is pretty much the same as a non-Suji. So so the same theory applies here. Any non-Suji tile dealing rate diverges, but because it's ruling out bad shape, it starts extremely low. Even if it diverges, because the starting point is really low, it takes a long time before it catches up to a non-Suji. So the takeaway is mid-game or early game Sotogawa is safer or comparable to Suji. And because it's a non-Suji, the dealing rate is still uncontained, which means that when it's late game, it's a lot more dangerous. But then for mid game and early game, you can trust Sotogawa the same way as you trust Suji, pretty much. Another thing is I think this is the last slide probably, and the last thing we're going to discuss is the one chance, which is a weaker blockade when there are only 3, not 4 3p visible to you. If the weight contains 3p, they need to be holding the one last 3p, which is less likely to happen. And okay, let's skip this table. So the takeaway is one chance is still a non-Suji, which means that it's uncontained. And for late game, one chance doesn't mean anything. One chance is only a very small correction compared to average non-Suji. So unless you are you run out of safe tiles to push, or you are having a very valuable hand to push, one chance is not a really good choice. And I think the other more important conclusion is that any chance means that you, for example, you are testing the, let's say, 4-7 so Suji. If you can't see any of the 5 so or any of the 6 so by anyone's discard, and this 4 so is not a Genbutsu, then this means that this tile is more dangerous than average non-Suji. So I think instead of remembering one chance is safer, I would prefer, remembering any chance is more dangerous than non-Suji. And yeah, I think that's it for today then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
One visible. A pair of Yakuhai considered one visible. Yes. All right. Thanks for joining. Moth kind of disappeared. He said last week that he's not gonna join, and this week he just disappeared. So I don't know. Okay, thank you for joining. Thanks, Icy, for joining as well.
Wait, unless I'm misremembering, do we have homework?
Yes, you have homework, but I need to prepare I need to add the Y region for that, and
Okay.
Yeah, after I do that, I'll send it.
Just
okay.
Update all the boxes to long replies, and then they can just reply as the reason and discards at the same time. You don't have to
I
need
guess
two
I will
boxes.
just put those long reply to a 0 point so that you still can know what is the score, but and also there's an extra region for you to submit the reason. Yeah. Okay, cool.
More zeros. Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, before you guys go, I think one of the questions I want to ask you guys is, so Jerry just explained, I think 7 concepts. I lost count. Does anyone want to tell me what the first concept he explained?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, go ahead.
I don't know if I remember all of them either.
No.
Okay, there was like
I just
defense.
wanna-
Defense.
Just the first one. Just the first one.
Oh god, what was the first one?
Wait, is it cheating?
Oh,
I took notes. Is it cheating if I look at my notes?
Yes.
Oh.
no.
It's not- it-
Oh god.
like, because it's fresh in your mind right now. You shouldn't need to know your notes.
Okay.
Temporary curtain is real.
So Jared, go to your first slide.
Okay.
Wait,
This is probably the first slide. This is the first slide, I guess. This one.
So what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I
so
remember
don't worry.
the.
This is not a trick question, and what I'm worried about right now is you're explaining too many concepts which are really in depth, and you're expecting people to remember. I think it was about 7 different things. And it's technically not 7. It's like 3 major categories with a couple of things sprinkled in them. And what I'm worried about is people's retention of the things that are being taught. So what you're doing is you're doing a lecture. So a person stands in front and just talks at people. And that's great when there's like 50 people in the class. You can't talk to everyone. In a more smaller environment, usually, in like when you go to, I don't know if you guys gone to like, I forgot what those classes are called, high school when you do special classes on Saturday, Sunday.
Like-
I forgot the name. It's, when you want to boost your ATAR or something, or your, I can't remember the name. Anyway, when in smaller
Like a
group of
tutoring
people-
service?
yeah, it's kind of. You generally have a slightly more of an interactive session, because what happens is, when you go to school, when you get taught something, you usually taught one concept. So like you're taught the Pythagoras theorem, as I explained to you, Jerry. You're not taught the Pythagoras theorem, calculus, like differentials and everything in the same time. Because if you get taught 4 concepts at the same time, the retention span of all 4 is actually much lower, and the comprehension of all 4 gets lower. So it's like an efficiency thing. So what happens is, I noticed that when you talked about the first thing, I was like, I'm curious how many people are actually going to remember what the first thing was. And, sure, you can take notes. Taking notes helps you remember. But what you talked about initially versus what you talked about later didn't really have a lot to do with each other. There were separate concepts. I'm curious to the team, to your team, because I'm not part of your team. I don't know how you guys have been working for a while. Curious to your team. Would you prefer a concentrated deep dive on one concept, or would you like a shotgun of concepts like what Jerry's done now? And do you even want a deep dive? Like, Jerry is currently going pretty deep in each concept. Would you rather him make it interactive, where he talks about a concept and explains like the conclusion of the concept and then asks questions about the concept? Would you rather that? Like, I'm curious about you guys' thoughts, because I know lectures are boring, and that's just the nature of lectures, right? So some people can't retain lectures as well. What do you guys think? So yeah.
I don't mind the shotgun of topics, but I think it'd be good if there's like, it's easy. For example, with the temporary furry 10, if you give like an obvious show of like, oh, what is safe to cut here? Oh, then obviously to the north Hellway. I'm more likely to remember examples like that than statistics, sadly, because I don't know, my brain just works like that. Or like, for example, with the
Visual
7p
learner, yep.
cut. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a visual learner for real though. So that's why I think that would be good if there was like more examples, and then maybe like asking what we'd do. I think, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So I also noticed, Jerry, what you do is, like I said, this is not criticism. This is just different ways of teaching. You go to a topic, you talk about it, and you ask if anyone has any questions. So I think the problem of asking if anyone has any questions versus asking them if they understand what you've just told is by asking them questions. The difference is they might not know what questions to ask, if that makes sense. So you first have to absorb the knowledge when you're teaching, and then you have to decipher and understand it, and then ask questions about gaps in your knowledge. that takes time. So that might be, after the fact, so on and so forth. But if you ask them, as Vivi mentioned, if you ask them a question like, which tile is temporary fruiton here versus to Shimo, and which tile is permanent fruiton to Shimo, ask them questions to see if they actually consolidate the knowledge. It would help.
Mm.
And you did do that with a few different concepts. So you did that, but you didn't do that with all the
Yeah, I
concepts,
feel like
which was interesting.
don't like the time given. Don't allow me to do this for every concept. But then I don't have to cover.
You have more time now. You have more time now, though, because you're not doing the quiz during the session, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm.
And
Yeah.
assistant did say they wanted more concepts but less in depth, which is interesting. That also works. So more defense theories, but like more about like this is true, but less about why it's true. Is that what you're saying, assistant? Okay. Well, Jerry, this is feedback from your team. Have you tried getting feedback from your team?
Well, yeah, I tried, but no one really responded except Monica. And also, like, I think I said like I would like everyone to schedule a log review, at least one log review with me before November 16th.
Mhm.
But then nobody really did that except Monica as well. So
Okay. I'll say this now. This tournament is more for fun. Whether or
Yeah.
not people can make time for the specific things is up to them. And I understand people have real life obligations. So if they don't schedule it, it's their loss, kind of. And they either A, forgot, or B, just don't have the time outside of the scheduled sessions that you've done now. For example, Moth just hasn't arrived a couple times. Maybe they're just busy IRL, they've got exams, so on and so forth. It's kind of depends on like what year you're in, depends on like and what country you're in, depends on how busy you might be at this time, especially with family and stuff. So that's completely on them. And you still have technically like a month and a bit, so it's not too late. If you guys do want to schedule a log review with Jerry, definitely schedule one with him. He does give pretty good insight. But yeah, hopefully you get some ideas from the feedback. I'm sorry that you're going to probably have to change some of the slides a little, so that's going to be a little bit more work for you.
yeah, I mean, I have more time now, and I've done with all of my midterms. So yeah.
Nice. Hope you did well in them.
Yeah, above average. That's all I need. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Been
the
pretty much
slides are
doing no
very
games in
good.
the last few weeks, so I haven't gotten game to review. Okay, fair enough. Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining, and thanks for the suggestions. Yeah. All right. See you maybe next week.
See you, everyone.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you very
See ya.
much.
See ya.
I know that